Welcome back to the Hammered Leatherworks studio. Today I'm going to show you how to dye leather. This is our Just Stitch It kit in the multi-pouch with our vegetable tanned leather. Vegetable tanned leather is left in its natural state, so it has no protective coating on it. So if you order a kit in a vegetable tanned leather, what you need to do is either dye it. You can use a commercially available dye, something like this EcoFlow in Timber Brown that we're going to be using today. You can also use a really strong mix of coffee or even tea, which has great results. You need to top coat the leather once you have dyed it, because the skin will absorb anything you put on it, just like the skin on your own body. So we're going to use carnuba cream for that. It's one of my new favourites. We have two sponges. One is for dyeing, one is for finishing. And this is the kit we're going to dye. So to get started, if you don't like having discoloured hands, you really want to put on a pair of gloves. I don't mind. I find it washes out over the next day or so, and it's just part of the trade. We're going to be using the EcoFlow Timber Brown today. I'm hoping to get these into the online store when I can, but they're a fantastic product. They're completely natural, but that doesn't mean they're completely washable. All right, guys? So you do have to make sure if you get it on your clothes, you rinse it out straight away because they will stain. So we're using this sponge. I've just run over to the sink and made it nice and damp. When you're dyeing leather, you want to use a damp sponge because you don't want the sponge to soak up the leather. You don't want the sponge to soak up the dye. You want the leather to soak up the dye. So here we go. This had a good shake. It's a beautiful colour. I'm just going to tip it. Most people will decant this so they can dip their sponge into it. Over time, you learn other ways to do it. So I'm just going to really soak up the sponge, and I'm going to start applying the dye in a circular motion. Hand dyeing is a really natural effect. You can use sprayers and things like that. But to be completely honest, I really like the look of a hand-dyed object. It has so much texture and life. It's just so beautiful. Need a little bit more. How dark you go in terms of colour completely depends on you. It's another thing I love about dyeing. It all comes down to you. I find, depending on what mood I'm in, depends how dark the product ends up. So it's certainly not an exact science. This may mean that you end up with a item that's got slightly different colours in it. I mean, that's the beauty of leather, isn't it? To have that really natural finish. Alrighty, I'm happy with that now. I'm just going to set that aside to dry. Won't take long at all. And I'm just going to do the other pieces of the kit while I'm in the same mood, obviously. The density of the leather also depends on how it dyes and its finish. This Torino that we use for our kits has a super smooth finish. I love it for this reason, because it means the texture in it is really fine. So you can dye both sides of the leather. These dyes can be used on both the finished and the suede sides, which I do tend to like to do for this reason exactly. See how the colour has bled through the back? That's really common, and it's because leather is a natural product. It is a skin, you know, it is going to seep in. It is going to give a really natural look. So I'm just going to do the back. This is our strap, so you are going to see the back of it. So I'm just going to hit it with a bit more dye. Pop it to one side. I'm going to do the same to these pieces. These are the side pieces of the kit. There we go. You want to be careful when you're doing the back side that you don't apply too much dye, because it can come through the holes onto the front layer. There we go. Put those to the side. This is the one we did before. I'm just going to flip it over. I'm going to do the back side of this one as well. I'm just going to check there's not too much dye on the board, because when you turn it over, if you have any excess dye on the surface you're dyeing on, it will mark the front. So you do need to be aware of that. The suede side of leather does soak up a lot more dye than what the front does. And that's because the surface area is so much greater because of all the texture. You can see I use a bit more of a dabbing motion when I do the back. That's to try and get the dye into the texture. It's not smooth like the front, so you really do need to be a little bit more forceful with the dye to make sure it gets into all those nooks and crannies. Okay. You can alternatively dip dye, which means making a bath of dye and dipping the piece in it to dye both sides at the same time. Do be aware this can take a long time to dry. I think we're done there. This can take a long time to dry, and it can also lead to like watermarks around the holes if there's a lot of dye in it. I'm just going to turn this one over. Just run over it again just to even out the colour, because we've done the back. Alright. So normally you would wait for this to dry. On a summer's day, you probably find 5 minutes is all it needs. It's winter at the moment, and so it's going to take a little bit longer. But what I am going to do is I'm going to put my carnuba cream straight over the top. It won't affect it too much, as long as, I mean, we're touch dry on the top here. As you can see, none of the dye is coming off on my hand. These are one of these funky containers where you've got to kitty safe the lid. So I'm going to push down. There we go. Now, carnuba cream is a beeswax emulsion. On all of our leathers, we suggest you use a water-based beeswax emulsion. It is going to give you the nicest, the most natural finish you can get without the oils that some of the other finishes may have. Oils will lay on the top of your leather. They will last a long time, which is great, especially if something is outdoors. But if it's a personal item that you're going to be handling a lot, you don't want that oily finish. So like I said, this is carnuba cream. It is available in our online store. It's fantastic stuff. I'm just using a high density sponge. You could use a kitchen sponge even if you wanted to. So same as we did before. We'll just dip it on. You see it's reasonably thick, and once again just circular motions. The reason everything goes onto leather in circular motions is because of the texture. It allows the natural texture of the leather to come through without any splotchiness, I guess. So it gives a really natural look and a really even distribution of what you're putting onto the leather. You'll find when you put a finishing coat on it like this, whether it be carnuba cream or a conditioning cream, that it also evens out the tone in the leather, which I find really nice. It mellows all the hard edges. Right, so you just want to rub it in, just like you would be rubbing a moisturiser into the skin on your face. A good rub, lots of rubbing. Okay. There we go. As you can see, obviously this leather at some point in time has had either another piece on top of it, or when they've created the hide, the way it's been skinned, it has quite an obvious line in it. I love working with dyeing leathers because you get these beautiful results and you find these hidden gems like this. So that's all for our dyeing tutorial today. I hope you've enjoyed it. You can find all of our kits available in vegetanned and pre-finished leathers in the online store. This is the multi-patch, and there'll be a tutorial on how to make this coming shortly. Don't forget to head to the shop and buy your supplies online, hammeredleatherworks.com.au.